Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. Today I'm going to talk about the new James Bond film, No Time to Die. I went to see this film last night with my son. It was a surprisingly emotional experience. I've been dreading the launch of this film for a couple of years. As most of you know, it's a couple of years overdue for being released because of the COVID, allegedly. So when it came on, I looked at a couple of reviews. I was worried about it being incredibly woke. I was worried about it going the same way as Doctor Who, Star Wars, and Star Trek in recent years, and just pushing a political agenda on us instead of being a piece of film entertainment. But James Bond has always been far more than just film entertainment. Has always been full of symbolism. And this review is not really a review of it as a film in the traditional sense. It's just my notes because it was such a powerful movie. Probably the best. I mean, I thought Casino Royale was a phenomenal film, and the rest of Daniel Craig's tenure was not fabulous. It kind of got lost in its own soap opera-ness and went up its own arse a few times with its Bondisms, but and wasn't particularly entertaining. Casino Royale was a phenomenal movie, full stop, up there with Goldfinger and On Her Majesty's Secret Service and The Spy Who Loved Me, my favourite films in the franchise. But Bond's always been full of symbolism. I'm going to explain the depth of that symbolism towards the end of this video, but because it links back to Queen Elizabeth I, it leans back to Cain and Abel, Masonism, high dimensional beings, magic, loads of stuff, right? This is the stuff that really interests me. So this is a kind of brain dump of what I saw in the film last night. For those of you that are interested in this sort of thing, which we all should be, because Hollywood has been used for over a century now to manipulate our feelings, to mind control us, to pre-program us to things that they want to do with us, but also to use our incredible ability to manifest things in this reality by filling us full of the programs that they want us to manifest, the world that they want to manifest using our abilities. So this is a little bit of a brain dump on what I saw, because I'm always looking for symbolism in movies, and although I've only seen the movie last night, I also didn't get much sleep last night because Facebook was down for 6 hours. I was extremely excited about that, and for some reason I woke up at 2 a.m. and stayed awake till 6 a.m. Couldn't get back to sleep. The energy is off the charts right now. So this Bond review is, if you're a normal film fan, you probably won't find this. Well, you should find this interesting, but you might not agree with all of it, and that's fine. This is about us doing our own research. If you want to see a normal film review, my favorite reviewers online are The Critical Drinker. He's amazing. And Heavy Spoilers, another great, I was going to say another great English reviewer. The Critical Drinker is a fantastic Scottish reviewer. Heavy Spoilers is a great English reviewer. And there's lots of good reviewers out there that are far more in depth than the mainstream ones. Stay away from the mainstream ones; they're useless. So the film surprised me in how enjoyable it was. I was sat there, and I kept every 20 minutes or so, I was going, "This is good. This is actually really good." Daniel Craig is the best performance of Bond I've seen him give. But I was actually thinking, this film's really well directed, and the script's good, and the pace is good. It looked incredible. The action sequences were brilliant. The story was good. It did have a few annoying moments in it, but there was few and far between. So yeah, there was a little bit of wokeness shoehorned in. I kind of get the feeling that there was a lot more wokeness in it that was taken out. I mean, for me, it felt as if there was a lot of editing and possibly reshooting that happened in the last couple of years because this film did not really represent the original trailers that we saw, which were basically implied that Bond was going to be recast as a black woman. And I've got no problem with a black woman playing a super spy, but don't steal it off James Bond. Especially as so many people over so many years have invested into this character. Just create your own franchise. That's my view. because it's appropriation of culture, and I don't think that's a good thing. But anyway, yeah, it was a good script, well directed, very well directed. But I thought it showed that the White Hats are in control of the movies. As I've already said, the 2-year delay, reshooting and editing. But I found that similar recently with Free Guy, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, and Black Widow. All of those films, I mean, Black Widow had the bad guy was hidden in a spaceship in the clouds and was stealing children and mind controlling and controlling the world using these mind control agents, right? It was kind of like exactly what's been going on. Shang-Chi was a little bit different. Shang-Chi for me was about the symbolism of the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, where Shang-Chi had to accept the badness of the history of his immortal dad and the goodness of his incredible mother, and then merge those two together to become something altogether greater than the sum parts of both of them, which is really, for me, what the prophecy of the eagle and the condor is all about. And it's also what this period of spiritual quarantine for planet Earth is all about, where we're having to reconcile the darkness and the light in order to come into something greater than both. Free Guy was actually really quite a good movie that was not woke, not very woke, and full of analogies for us living under a dome, living in a virtual reality. The NPCs that Dolores Cannon referred to in her work as background characters, that's really what the film was about, developing a consciousness and a soul, and all that entails in a comedy movie for kids, which is the best place to hide this kind of stuff. So yeah, I found it was doing that. But then, for those of you who know Bond, you know that Spectre's been a long-running enemy that was resurrected in the film, which brought Christoph, what's his name, in as Blofeld. Not a great Blofeld. He's no Donald Pleasance or even Telly Savalas, but it was okay. It was good to have him back in the film Spectre, although Spectre as a film didn't really work for me. But really, heavily full of Illuminati symbolism in Spectre, and the same in this film. And the Spectre, it's quite convenient that the whole of Spectre were having a party, and Blofeld was supposed to kill Bond. This is going to be full of spoilers, by the way. If you don't want spoilers, go somewhere else. Go and watch the movie before you come back to this. Blofeld was going to kill Bond using a bionic eye from his prison in Belmarsh in London, while at this party in Cuba, which I did enjoy a lot of Bondisms in this, including his watch, but that's another story. And time is part of this. The watch is part of it. The symbolism of time in the opening credits. This is all coming back to me now. I've not written notes on this. Very interesting. Timeline shifting, which is, anybody knows my channel will understand what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to go and find another review. And they all get murdered in a switcheroo, right? Which is classic switcheroo. Instead of Bond dying, they all die around him almost instantly from this virus that is coded for DNA, right? And Bond actually refers to the party as a bunga bunga party, which, if you are familiar with the delightful premier of Italy, Berlusconi, famous bunga bunga parties are basically underage sex parties that he ran notoriously, and are really Illuminati parties. And if you look at the way that the Spectre people in this film are dressed at the party, there's definite references to the Rothschilds parties from the early 70s. You can see a picture here of the kind of weirdness that they do at their parties, which you've also probably seen if you're a film fan in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. And then Rami Malek, who is probably most well known for playing Freddie Mercury in that interesting film about Queen. He plays a character called Lucifer Safin, which is obviously a riff on the word Lucifer. And I thought I'd just look into the word Safin. It's an Arabic word that means the boat. It's a boy's name generally. It could mean many other things, and this is just me doing a quick piece of research in the morning. But considering that the enemy of the human race has been the Phoenicians, or part of the enemy structure that's used us as a food farm for so long, and the Phoenicians were based in Venice because Venice is considered to be a ship at sea, and the enslavement of the human race has been done mainly through their fractional reserve banking system and maritime law. So I thought it was an interesting choice of surname, the Lucifer boat. Read into that as you will, and go and do your own research. Lucifer also wears a mask that's very similar to the kind of symbolism that you'll see again in the Rothschild parties and Eyes Wide Shut, which also traces back to the masquerades of the Phoenicians and the Venetians, which, if you look into the history of that, it's very dark, very interesting. But interesting choice that he wears this mask. Lucifer also has an island where he has a virus stroke genetic stroke poison factory, which is extremely Jeffrey Epstein. And if you don't know, if you think Epstein was just bringing 16-year-old girls for Prince Andrew to have sex with, no, 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 no. He was doing much, much worse, much, much deeper stuff than that. Look into him in relation to CRISPR, CRISPR, gene altering technology. He was a heavy investor in this. And this all ties in with the film, because the film's about this gene altering weapon that this guy's got that becomes a threat for the entire planet. Kind of similar to Wuhan, kind of similar to Epstein and the CRISPR technology. So it's worth looking into that. Lucifer, the character, also steals Bond's child. Bond has a child in this film. And that theme of genetics is carried through because he specifically relates to his blue eyes being passed on. So there's a big genetic theme to this film, as well as timelines. And you could read into Lucifer stealing his child as on this island and separating the child from her mother as a metaphor for all our children, which I think it probably is. And the other thing, interesting thing about the Lucifer character is that he really only turns up in Act 3 of the film, which again indicates that the film was possibly heavily edited. I also found it interesting about Rami Malek, in that Rami Malek was accused by Macaulay Culkin of Home Alone fame on Twitter about 3 years ago, for being a baby eater. Now, I don't know if that's true. This is Hollywood we're talking about. It's weird as fuck, right? Culkin does promote Satanism and is obviously abused as a kid, and he's got a band called Underground Pizzas or something, which is all full of symbolism. I don't know if that means Malik is a good guy. If you look up Malik online, you'll see that he does do this kind of symbolism in some of his pictures, which is similar to Princess Diana and Trump. So you could read into that. He might be a bad guy, might be a good guy, might be a bad guy turned good. Who knows? But it's interesting. It's interesting to me anyway. There's Macaulay Culkin's famous tweet. Now, Felix Leiter makes a return in this, and Felix Leiter has been played brilliantly twice before by Jeffrey Wright. He's my favorite version of Felix Leiter. He's the brother from Langley, and that's how he describes himself in Casino Royale. Now, you've got to understand that films, when they use symbolism, they often have double, treble, quadruple meanings. So it was interesting, firstly, that they killed this character off. Now, this character represents the CIA. So are they saying the CIA is now dead, in this film? Maybe. Because he's a black guy, I thought it was beautifully done. First, it was very touching that he dies basically in Bond's arms, and Bond gets revenge on him. And Bond sends out a message of brotherly love between a white guy and a black guy without it being woke in any way, shape, or form. And he gets revenge on the guy that killed him, who was a white guy. So I thought that was really interesting, because it could have the race stuff within this film is all played very, very well. It's not shoving it in your throat. It's not like Black Lives Matter. It's like, okay, people have respect for each other regardless of their race or regardless of their sexuality, and that is a good thing, right? It's a really good thing to see in a film, and it's one of the things about this film that I really actually enjoyed, because it wasn't some political agenda being shoved down our throat designed to divide us. And I thought the characters were very representative and very respectful to each other. Q, this is quite interesting. When Bond and the new 007 are going on the island, they are being tracked by Q on a screen, and they have these symbols, and Q very specifically makes reference to Bond's symbol, which is a trident, which is, so, that stuck in my head, came back. I got a bit of help with the research on this, but a trident is a planet that is a symbol that is characterized by mercy and kindness. Those ruled under the planet Neptune are always sweet, forgiving, and compassionate. People who are heavily influenced by Neptune often find freedom from the demands of their ego. Neptune is the planet of inspiration, the higher octave of Venus. Neptune brings beauty to a higher, more spiritual level. It also holds sway over dreams, the subconscious illusions, fantasies, and all things magical and enchanting. Neptune intensifies intuition and teaches us to be deeply compassionate, which is exactly what Bond does here. He sacrifices himself for the whole world, and he's in a terrible situation because he knows that he can never be with his daughter and his wife again, and it's heartbreaking. And that's the tragedy of Bond, really. And they do pull back on that tragedy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service with the use of "We Have All the Time in the World" by Louis Armstrong, which was famously used at the end of that film, and is used heavily in here. And they do draw back on a lot of Bondisms. They even use Timothy Dalton's Aston Martin. They have oil paintings of previous M's in the shots, but it was all done very tastefully. It wasn't like, oh, look at this. It was just there, and I thought it was really, really well done. And it was really interesting that M is the cause of this problem. M really is the reason why this virus situation is occurring. Although he didn't mean it for it to get out of hand like this. It's interesting that the establishment is the problem. Shiva also has a trident, and what's interesting about Shiva is that Shiva is known as zero in that culture, or nothing, which is 0 point energy, which is God. So that's interesting. No ego, and it transcends thought. So maybe reading too much into the trident. I don't think so. There are no accidents, and nothing is put on screen without a meaning or a reason. So go and watch the film, do your own research, and see what you think. And if you find any other things in the film, leave them in the comments below. So I tell you that James Bond dies at the end of the film. You might have guessed that from the title of this video, and there's no way that he didn't die. He dies. Yeah. What this means for the franchise, the James Bond franchise in the 3D world, I'm not really interested in right now, apart from the fact that, emotionally, as somebody who grew up with Sean Connery and Roger Moore and George Lazenby, I've spent 50 years doing dodgy Bond impressions and getting a great deal of entertainment out of James Bond. So I'm emotionally invested in it. It was really upsetting to see James Bond, the character, die. That's the 3D interpretation. What does it mean in terms of what they're trying to tell us if you assume the good guys are in control of these movies now? Well, if you understand that James Bond is really based upon John Dee, then it becomes quite interesting. If you've not heard of John Dee was a philosopher, a magician, an alchemist, a polyglot. He was Queen Elizabeth I's chief advisor and spy. He was the one that allegedly, go and do your own research into this, because there's a lot of, you can go onto the University of Cambridge website and find an article there about, was John Dee the original James Bond? But typically for this kind of website or this kind of university, they tell you a version of events, and what they don't tell you is what's more interesting. So if you go and research John Dee, you'll find, firstly, the interesting thing about John Dee is that he signed his letter, apart from all the things I've just said about him, he signed his letters to Queen Elizabeth I as 007. That's a fact. That's a verifiable fact. I think I put a picture of it in this. Did I? No, I didn't. So he signed his name as 007 in correspondence to the Queen, this is where the University of Cambridge website doesn't tell you this. 007 is shorthand for two-ball Cain, two-ball Cain, son of Cain, as in Cain and Abel. Also, two-ball Cain is used, it's like cock and balls, and it's also used by a lot of Masons. You'll see, you can go and do research on Masonic golf events in America, and you'll see they're called the two-ball Cain event because they're using the golf ball. So there's always double meanings in these things, hidden in plain sight. That is the key thing to the secret societies, to the occult, and MI6, MI5 occult organizations. Ian Fleming was part of those occult organizations. Ian Fleming wrote most of the Bond books from, I think, the Bahamas, or Jamaica, sorry, which is where, incidentally, Bond retires to in this film. And I think the island he wrote those things from was called Goldeneye, or the house on the island was called Goldeneye, which, of course, was Pierce Brosnan's first Bond film, which is the eye of Saturn and full of all this symbolism. So John Dee is also famous, if you go deep enough into the research, for calling on higher dimensional beings, demons. Very much a predecessor of Aleister Crowley. Very similar sort of character, like people like Da Vinci and people throughout the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries that were deeply into the occult and connecting with these other beings. And from the research I've done, John Dee was asking for knowledge, knowledge to give competitive advantage and in the world, which they got, and that led to him being overwhelmed with this knowledge and then going off and setting up universities. And I think you'll find he was one of the founders of Cambridge University, or one of the early people that invested in it and built colleges there. But fascinating film, surprisingly entertaining. I've put a link there, altcensored.com. If you pause the video and just copy that, I might put the link in the description. That's a good place to start with John Dee research and James Bond. So look, there's just another take on James Bond that I wanted to share with you, because it's, Q said symbolism will be their downfall. I think it's essential that all of us get a little bit more up to speed with symbolism, because we need to know how we're being programmed. We need to know why we're being programmed and what we're being programmed for. And this era that we're moving into, for me, very much feels like the good guys are in control of the media and Hollywood, and they are dripping it out in a way to save as many lives as possible. That's my belief. You might disagree with me. Leave things in the comments. If you have any other symbolism from this Bond film or any other comments on it, I'd be fascinated to see what you say. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and share. And don't forget to sign up to my email list, which will be in the description. Goodbye.